Welcome friends, this is a unboxing, setup, and comparison between the Milwaukee and the new Hercules Deep Cut Bandsaw. I bought the Milwaukee on a fantastic sale, but I noticed that Hercules finally came out with theirs, and I wanted to see how they both compared. I'm not sponsored or monetized, and I did pay out of pocket for both of these, so I will likely sell one of them after seeing which one is better. First up for unboxing is the Milwaukee. I bought the saw from Home Depot and it came with a 6 amp hour battery, but I don't have any other M18 products, so I had to buy this rapid charger and XC 8 amp hour battery on Amazon. When I got it out, I didn't really know which way it looked confusing because it was meant to be hanging on a wall and I didn't realize that at first. The battery doesn't seat all the way in there either, it just kind of rests inside. For the Hercules, I had to buy these separately. This is a fast charger and then also an 8 amp hour battery. They did have a sale, so I got this on sale also. I'll put the amount that I paid for everything at the end, and I believe actually at the front also. I let both of those charge while I unbox the saws themselves. The first saw to unbox is the Milwaukee again. You'll notice that the packaging is mostly cardboard and packaged quite small. The Milwaukee does come with one extreme thick metal blade in the box, which is nice because the blades are surprisingly expensive. Once I pulled out the tool itself out of the plastic, I did immediately smell a nice oiled tool smell, which was surprisingly satisfying. The Hercules box opens up almost exactly the same as the Milwaukee box, but the packaging is mostly styrofoam, and there's no blade in the box. My immediate thought pulling the tool out of the plastic is that this thing is much heavier and larger than the Milwaukee was. There was plenty of visible oil on the tool, but it didn't have that oddly satisfying oil smell on the tool itself. Alright, so for some direct comparison here, I did lift both of them again, and the Milwaukee was actually heavier, but felt much smaller and compact. The next thing to look at was the guide bar. Both of them have 3-position metal guide bars. The Hercules has a large plastic press button, which allows quick deployment of the bar, and it's super fast and easy. The Milwaukee's bar has like a blade style button, which is a little tight and difficult to move, but I'm sure it will break in. The rafter hangers were similar in style, but very different in execution. The Milwaukee is full metal and snaps into place, while the Hercules lock is actually plastic, and the roll pin on mine was misaligned so it would not properly lock into the plastic groove. The tensioners go in opposite directions and feel like a different design. The Milwaukee feels like an eccentric cam, while the Hercules felt like just a constant tensioner. A size comparison is a little difficult, but the Milwaukee motor housing is probably half an inch thinner, and the low-profile handle shortens the throw of the overall tool. One big bonus for the Hercules, though, is that it comes with blade guards. They slide in from either side and have a locking clip molded in. Both of them have trigger safeties since they're battery operated, and I like this for use with the stand since it provides extra safety with the stand's integrated trigger locking mechanism. The Milwaukee safety is low profile but very tactile, where the Hercules sticks out and it can be difficult to identify whether or not the safety is on. Next, I looked at the operating guides. They both have blade brushes in the same position as well as 2 bearing guides, but the Hercules has a 3rd bearing guide near the forward handle. They both have variable speed triggers and speed dials. The Hercules has 10 ratcheting positions, but its dial is numbered up to 6 on the dial itself, and I had to laugh at the font, which makes it very easy to identify that the Hercules is made in China. The Milwaukee also has 10 positions, even though the dial is only numbered up to 5, but the positions are better defined and they click into place. Both of these tools feel very comfortable and natural to hold. Again, the Hercules just feels much larger, probably because the handle, the forward handle, is pretty big. Now, Milwaukee does make snap-on covers that you can buy just like the Hercules ones, but they're some ridiculous price, and lining the Hercules covers up onto the Milwaukee, you can tell that the Hercules is just a little bit bigger. went through all the big items again on each of the tools, and I had to check out this huge handle on the front of the Hercules. It comes with an Allen key to loosen and adjust the positioning, and it's pretty cool that the Allen wrench stores right inside the handle also. Next up was unboxing the Hercules bandsaw stand. This thing is a pretty big deal since the other name brand stands only do either vertical or horizontal, and they cost 3 times as much. I'd been trying to get a hold of one of these since mid-July, but I didn't have any luck until the local manager held one for me when it came in. This thing is super heavy since it's all steel. I couldn't get one piece of styrofoam off. This was because of the way I was holding it, but I thought it was tape holding it on. After cutting off the tape, I found out that the tape was actually holding on a heavy vertical cutting table, which ended up drawing blood from my shin.
Oh my god, that was a mistake.
I pulled out the adapter hardware and then wiggled off the styrofoam from the stand before pulling the hardware out of the box. I wanted a direct comparison of the tools and not the blades, so I decided to use 2 brand new Milwaukee blades from the same package. This was the first time that I'd ever used a bandsaw, let alone installed a blade, so I definitely didn't know what I was doing. I had to read the instructions. Basically, just loosen the tensioner and wiggle it on there, then tighten the tensioner. I tried to make sure that the teeth were even on the rubber wheels and that the blade was all the way inside of those bearing wheels. Again, the Hercules has a 3rd bearing wheel on the top next to that adjustable handle. I'm not really sure why that's there. On the Milwaukee, I found it easier to install the blade on the outside of the rubber wheels first and then install it into the bearing wheels. Without that 3rd bearing wheel on the top, there was no way to gauge the appropriate depth, so I just kind of guesstimated and then made it as even as possible. The batteries were still charging, so I installed the Hercules blade covers before starting the stand install. On the stand, I cut off the zip ties holding down the gas strut and then easily clipped the strut into the upper stand arm. Then I chained it down and cut off the zip tie on the trigger mechanism. This thing is spring-loaded and locks the trigger into the on position. The lamest part of the stand is the rear bracing, which is just rubber feet which tighten on either side of the saw handle. This is a universal stand though, so there isn't a sexier way to do this. Each bandsaw has a different adapter, and the Milwaukee uses adapter number 1, which bolts in place of the handle. The stand comes with various Allen wrenches, but not this one, so you will need an 8mm Allen key to unbolt the handle. I also found that the adapter wasn't thick enough, so I had to use 2 washers to make it work. When I was ready, I slid the saw in from underneath and made sure that the adapter was on top of the stand arm. The Milwaukee seemed to be in the right position from the start, but I couldn't find the hardware to bolt down the adapter, nor could I find the trigger bar. All of this was inside of the bag that holds the Bauer bandsaw adapter. The bolt, washer, and lock washer go in the top, and the 13mm nut goes in underneath. I used a 6mm Allen key and a 13mm socket to tighten the adapter down until the lock washer is compressed. Next, I installed the trigger bar, which is a little tricky since you have to set it with enough play to allow the trigger safety to engage, but enough engagement to allow full speed when the stand's trigger lock is fully engaged. So some of this might require movement of the entire tool forward or backward based on where you can screw in that trigger on the far side. The threaded hole side of the trigger bar goes underneath the stand arm, and the screw tightens down through one of those adjustment holes, while the flat bar side of the trigger bar goes on top of the arm and interfaces with the trigger lock. The Hercules battery went from 2 bars when I opened it to fully charged in about 40 minutes, while the Milwaukee went from 1 bar when I opened it to fully charged in about an hour. Hercules advertises 8 amp charging, while Milwaukee charges at 6 amps. The Milwaukee made a light humming noise, while the Hercules had a super loud fan blasting while it was charging. I installed the freshly charged battery and manually ran the bandsaw to ensure that the blade was tracking properly. When I thought it was good, I turned off the safety, made sure that the speed was all the way up, and did a test cut on some 1/4-inch steel plate. Next, I needed to test the Hercules, which had its own adapter in the box. I used the included Allen wrench to remove the handle and install the adapter, bolt, and nut. Once I got the saw into the stand, I realized that I had to make several adjustments to get the blade straight in the cutout. Then I spent a very long time moving it left, right, forward, and back to get the wheels and the blade to fit in the lower cutouts. And then I had to adjust it again to allow the trigger bar to work with the saw at full speed, since the Hercules has a much longer trigger pull than the Milwaukee. Finally, it was time for the cut, and I realized that the Hercules had a much brighter LED light than the Milwaukee, which was fantastic. Alright, so yay, they can both cut. Now for the actual comparison, I needed to pull some data and give my impression in general. The Milwaukee I got on a great sale from Home Depot. It came with the tool and with an XC6 amp hour battery for $308 after taxes. And I got the XC8 amp hour battery with the rapid charger on Amazon for $138 after taxes, bringing the total tool cost to around $450. Harbor Freight did a price adjustment for me on the Hercules stuff since it's on sale right now for 20% off. So the whole set was only $243 after tax. Otherwise, the original price was $303 after tax, just with normal pricing. Hercules is listed at a higher speed. The surface feet per minute, and despite my flip-flop on which one was heavier, the Hercules turned out to be heavier, according to the box. It was also larger and more awkward in general. The Harbor Freight has a couple design issues, like the rafter hanger and the guide plate having plastic parts, and the metal bits on the motor housing weren't aligned perfectly. I made a joke about the funny font on the Hercules dial and attributed it to, it's just made in China. The Milwaukee is also made in China, and I mean, all iPhones are made in China, so who cares? The first review for the Milwaukee bandsaw that I could find on YouTube was 9 years old. So I kind of thought that when the Hercules saw came out, it would just be a cheaper ripoff with similar quality, but it definitely isn't. I was shocked by how much slower it cut the metal also. And I'm not sure if it was tensioned properly from the factory, because the saw was a lot louder and it almost sounded like the blade was slipping when it was cutting through the metal. But you see at the bottom there, despite all of these problems, if I was to do it again, I would just buy the Hercules. Why? Well, I was waiting for the Hercules to come out for months, and finally I just bought the Milwaukee when I saw a good enough sale. And you know, getting the extra battery in the sale for the Milwaukee more than makes up for the price difference considering the quality, but spending that much on a hobby saw for me is just stupid. It's way too much. And the Hercules is just a fantastic value, honestly. So if I could do it again, I would not have ordered the Milwaukee. I would have waited the extra month for the Hercules to come out and grabbed that. Anyway, I hope this video will help give you an idea of what to expect with these saws and with the stand. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.